go ahead and get started. Again, for the third time there, for people who have been here, my name is Aisha Jordan. I'm a program associate at Fractured Atlas, and this again is the Fiscal Sponsorship Orientation for New Projects webinar. I want to welcome you to tonight's presentation. And we thank you for taking time to attend this webinar. We appreciate having, proactive members who go out of their way to learn about our program and policies and procedures before they really dive headfirst into their fundraising. And anyone else who out there who hasn't become a member or fiscally sponsored yet, who really is looking into how our program works. So again, I hope everyone can hear me and can see the slides up there. If at any time you cannot hear me or you cannot see what is happening in slides, please feel free to just shoot the message into the chat or into the Q&A box so we can try to fix any technical errors that might go on while we're going through this. But fingers crossed, we will have none and we'll have a great webinar. So tonight's webinar is being recorded, so don't feel pressured to, jot down all the notes. And if you miss anything, we will send you a link to this recording later this week, which you're welcome to share with anyone that you think might be interested, and so that you can go back and catch anything you may have missed as we go through the slides. There will be an opportunity for questions at the end of the presentations. So you can feel free to chat any questions throughout. And if I do have the time to kind of jump in and say something while we're going through the slides, I will. But otherwise, I will get to all the questions later towards the end of the presentation. All right, so everyone can still see and hear me. I just want to double check. We did just have a glitch a second there. I want to make sure everyone can still hear and see me. Okay, wonderful. You can all hear and see me. Great. So let's keep going. So in the last 12 months, our fiscally sponsored projects have raised $21,978,156. I'm sorry, I'm saying that right. $21,978,156,000 in the last year, and that is a running total up to this date. So as I'm sure you're now by now aware, that our fiscal sponsorship program extends some of the benefits of our 501c3 status to artists and arts organizations so that they can solicit tax-deductible donations from individuals and institutional funders, which would otherwise only be available to nonprofits. So currently, we are running 4,007 fiscally sponsored projects by Fractured Atlas. They are producing either one-off discrete projects like a single film or dance production or theater production, or we're sponsoring them for their ongoing activities for something like a theater company or a production company or a work in progress for a visual artist. So ultimately, we have the largest fiscal sponsorship program in the nonprofit arts sector. And how many Fractured Atlas staff members do we have administer this program? 11. Yep, we have 11 staff members, full-time staff members that are helping you with your projects and all of the little intricacies that go into fundraising. So we are definitely here to help. We have a lean member of 11 individuals who support our members who are also using other programs. So, when you give us a call or shoot us an email, you can be working with any one of us at any given time, depending on the nature of your inquiry. So a little bit about myself. I've been with Fractured Atlas for about 2 years now. I do have my own fiscally sponsored project. So I run a hip hop and social justice theater company group that has been fiscally sponsored with Fractured Atlas for about 7 years now. So I am very well equipped to help with our fiscal sponsorship members who are looking how to use our services. Right. So the way we're able to run a program of this size so smoothly and efficiently is that we have custom built online tools that allow for much of the program to be automated, and there's a great deal of functionality at your fingertips. So that allows you to control a large portion of your fundraising activities on your own. And the purpose of today's presentation is to show you the path forward with our fiscal sponsorship program by giving you a tour of what's available to you on our website and to outline some of our program policies and procedures for using those. So once our board of directors approves your project for the program, you'll be able to log into our website and access your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. Now you hear us say this a lot, so maybe definitely pay attention and take a look at this. This is your primary portal for interacting with the program. So we're going to walk you through some of the features of this page as well as the program manual. Of course, there's no substitute for hands-on learning, so we couldn't possibly cover everything in this presentation. So I definitely encourage you to thoroughly explore this page on your own and read through the program manual, which is available on our knowledge base as your first steps once you start setting up your sponsorship with us. So one of the things, first things we want to understand about our fiscal sponsorship program is that it makes a distinction between earned and contributed revenue. So earned revenue refers to any funds given in exact for a good or in exchange for a good or service. Excuse me. I am fighting a little bit of a cold, so bear with me as I go through this. This is usually known as a purchase or a fee for a service that is not considered tax deductible. So that's what earned income is. It could be ticket sales or merchandise sales, anything like that, where people are receiving something in return. Now, contributed revenue is any amount of money given without the expectation of receiving anything in exchange. So this is usually a donation or a grant in which a donor gives an amount of money to support your work but doesn't get anything in return. Now, contributed revenue is generally considered tax deductible. So we're not saying that you can't accept earned revenue or anything like that. It's just that earned revenue would need to be made payable directly to you. We don't process earned revenue for the purposes of our fiscally sponsored project. Fractured Atlas can only accept contributed revenue for the purposes of our fiscally sponsored projects. Now, we do accept projects that have for-profit investors, though we cannot process private investments or equity. There is an addendum that we ask our projects to sign if they are expecting for-profit investors. And we only process the charitable donations from individuals or institutions for the purposes of our sponsored project. But again, that doesn't limit you to only accepting contributed revenue. You can go ahead and do that if it's given directly to you. So we can help process your donations. Again, that's contributed revenue in 3 different ways: by debit or credit card on our website or on our crowdfunding campaign, donations made by check payable to Fractured Atlas, also non-cash donations of goods made in kind to the charitable purposes of your project. And more on these types of non-cash donations will be said later, so we'll get into that. So each of our fiscally sponsored projects has a donation landing page on our website where they can direct donors who want to contribute by credit or debit card. We can accept credit card donations up to $20,000 per transaction. Now that's just transaction. So if you're in the enviable problem of knowing a donor who wants to contribute more than $20,000, and charge it to their credit card, you'll just need to ask them to do it over multiple charges. And we do ask that they wait a little bit in between these charges so that our system can kind of catch up so it doesn't think it's a duplicate donation or that it was made by mistake. So donors who contribute by credit card are required to provide an email address, which we automatically will send them their tax receipt right away. And that's only for credit and debit donations. And please note that you are prohibited from collecting credit card information from your donors and entering it into our website on your own. Donors must input their own debit or credit card information or contact Fractured Atlas to process a donation over the phone. This opens us up to some liability issues, as you may think, and as a sponsored project, you are not authorized to use our credit card processor in this way. So we do ask that they enter their information themselves or give us a call. Now, your donor landing page is a public-facing page on our website where you should put content that you want potential donors to see. This can be an image or YouTube video or Vimeo video, along with a brief description of your project or what your current activities are. And let me know, I tend to talk really fast as well, so if I'm talking too fast, just let me know, slow down, and I can do that. So one of the things about your donor landing page is that you can edit your sponsored project's online profile on our website through your My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the online profile button. So you'll see right there in the image, when you go into your My Fiscal Sponsorship page, you can click that button that says online profile, and then you can either edit or see the current profile. When you submit changes, an automated email will go to a member of our staff asking for review and approval before it goes live on our website. We typically turn this around in 1 to 2 business days. We'll either approve the changes outright or be in touch with you directly via email if we have any questions about the new material that you're putting up on your profile. And again, this is only specifically for if you're changing any descriptive things within your online profile. If you're changing a video or a picture, those things do go up automatically. So we can also accept check donations that are made payable to Fractured Atlas. You're welcome to have donors write your name or the name of your sponsored project in the memo line, but this isn't necessarily required because we ask that your donors mail you the contribution first, and I'll get into why in a second. Once you receive a donation by check from your donor, you would then report the donation made by check on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the Donations button. So you see the image right there on that same page, My Fiscal Sponsorship. You click Donations, and under that tab Checks, you'll see Report, and that's where you would report the information in the check. So here's where you'll create the donor record for check contributions. You'll provide the donor's name, contact information, and any information available to you from their check before forwarding on to us for processing and deposit. Now, you'd be surprised how many unreported checks arrive at our office, which we end up spending a lot of time doing detective work to figure out which of our fiscally sponsored projects they are designated for. Now, we often have to mail unreported checks back to the donor or back to you, as it is crucial that we receive this info in advance. So kind of look back on that. Your donors will send their check contributions first to you. You will submit donation reports on our website and then forward the checks onto us for processing and deposit. You will be sent an email notification once the donation is processed with a copy of the tax receipt to forward onto your donor with thanks. Again, for check donations, once we process it, you actually receive that tax receipt and are responsible at sending that directly to your donor, which is different than the credit card donations, which they get automatically, making it by credit card. So we can accept check donations of any size, but for those check donations that are $2,500 or more, we require an extra piece of documentation known as the major gift letter. So the major gift letter is a simple letter that is available for you to download from your My Fiscal Sponsorship page for your donor to complete and sign. Now you're able to upload the major gift letter as an attachment to the donation report, but it's not required and can be mailed. It can be emailed or mailed to us at any time. So feel free to send us a check to process before you receive the major gift letter if you aren't able to obtain both at the same time. Now, we're happy to process reported checks of $2,500 or more without the major gift letter, but note that the donated funds will not be made available to you until we have received the signed and completed letter. So as a nonprofit, we are required to submit ourselves to an annual internal audit, and during which our auditors look for this extra verification of donors' intent to support your project. So right there, that is what the major gift letter looks like, and that is what you can download from the My Fiscal Sponsorship page to get to your donors. Again, we don't need a penned signature. It does need to be a signature. It can be an authorized electronic signature. It can be printed, signed, and scanned and emailed back to us. But as long as we get that with the donation, the funds would be then available to you. So there are a couple different types of monetary donations that we cannot accept, and one is cash donations. So I think, as I mentioned before, cash donations, they actually have to go directly to you as the project, and in order for us to issue a tax receipt, we need to be able to link the money back to a specific individual or entity, and with cash donations, we wouldn't be able to do that. And the same is said for money orders. So we cannot trace this back specifically to a donor, and we aren't able to give tax receipts without that traceable element. And with a credit card transaction or a check with the donor's bank account and routing numbers on it, it provides that direct link. So again, because cash and money orders are not specific to an individual's financial institution or bank account, they don't provide that paper trail that we need to get back to the donor. Now, again, you're welcome to accept these types of donations, cash or money orders. It would just need to go directly to you as the project, and the donation would not be tax deductible to your donor, and there would be no tax receipt issued. But if you want the tax receipt, please instruct them to contribute via debit or credit card, or send a check payable to Fractured Atlas. So we can, however, help you with non-cash or in-kind donations. These donations have to be physical or tangible items that you can touch with your hands, and those of which the ownership is fully donated over to your project. So let's talk about that a little bit further so we can get down to it. So we can only process a physical, tangible items, so they need to exist in the real world. Things you can touch with your hands, things that would then belong to you. Donations of a person's time or services are not considered by the IRS to be charitable. So charitable tax deductible donations. So if a restaurant donates food or beverage to you, they can get a receipt for those items. But if they donate their catering services, they could not get a tax receipt for that, which includes their contributed time. We can, however, accept gift cards or gift certificates from businesses that otherwise sell these items. So to be a little clear about that, if you went to Macy's and you got a gift card worth $50 donated to you, you could accept that because they regularly sell gift cards and is worth cash to that business. So in order to be tax deductible, non-cash donations need to be fully donated over to the charitable purposes of your sponsored project. So donations of rent or rental items wouldn't count. If someone gives you equipment for free that they would normally charge a rental fee for, and you would need to return the items when you're done, that's really more of a loan, even if they're waiving the rental fee. Similarly, donated space rentals wouldn't count as tax deductible, as you're not being given what the IRS calls full interest in the property. In other words, if you need to give it back, it's not considered a donation. Finally, we cannot accept donations of air miles, airfare, or automobiles. With airline and airfare, specifically a person with the 501c3 organization would need to be the one receiving the ticket if you're doing airfare. And so if you want to send me to Hawaii, that's fine, I'll go. But if you want a donation to your project, unfortunately, that's something we couldn't do. And air miles are not considered tangible items, so that's something we can't do as well. And automobiles require very specific oversight that we cannot do. So as with check donations, you'll need to report non-cash donations on your MyFiscal sponsorship page as well. Here, you'll also be able to download the non-cash donation letter. So this is another simple form letter for the donor to fill out, where they provide a description and value of the items that they are contributing. So once you download that from your MyFiscal sponsorship page, you can upload that non-cash donation letter to the donation report when you submitted it through your MyFiscal sponsorship page. So in that same location where you report the check donations, you'll see one for non-cash donations and report, and you can do that there. For any non-cash donation valued of $250 or more, we will require a photograph of the donated item or items. So be sure to take a photograph as soon as you receive the donation, especially if it's food or beverage. We have a lot of people who said, I donated a huge platter of food. And then we say, okay, we'll need a picture of that. And they say they ate it. So in order for us to process any donation of $250 or more, we do need that picture uploaded along with that non-cash donation form. So with all donations that we process for the purposes of our fiscally sponsored projects, we deduct an administrative fee to cover the cost of running this program. So our administrative fee pays for our website maintenance, staff time, and things like credit card processing and bank fees. The fee starts at 7%, but as you raise more money over time, the fee is lowered on check donations. So the breakdown looks a little bit like this. If you raise $150,000 or more over the lifetime of your fiscal sponsorship, the administrative fee on check donations goes down to 6%. At $500,000 or more, it's reduced to 5%. And if you raise $1 million or more, the fee goes down to 4%. And we have had projects raise at least that much money over their time with us. It is important to mention that the fee remains 7% for credit card donations because the processing fee on these does not change. So that's something we wouldn't have control over. It does remain 7%, excuse me, for credit card and debit card donations. So we also charge a fee on the stated value of the donated cash, non-cash items. So you can either have us charge this fee to your credit card on file or have us deduct it from your project's available fund balance. Can I clear that a little bit? It means that anytime you receive a non-cash donation, you'd be paying 7% on the value of that non-cash donation that's being processed. So you can always check your fund balance on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. Again, here, whether you see that green arrow, you'll log in and click info/reports, and you click on that and you'd see the available fund balance you have there. So before we keep going, full steam ahead, maybe we should take a step back because before we even start processing donations, how do we get people to actually consider making a contribution? So, well, we ask. And this is often the first hurdle that budding arts entrepreneurs encounter. Every day, we talk to artists or art startup who experience an initial queasiness about asking people for money. Now, we encourage our fiscally sponsored projects to consider themselves in very good company. All nonprofit artistic ventures in the United States require philanthropic support to keep in operation. That goes for the Metropolitan Opera in New York and the Getty Museum in LA. Don't consider it panhandling or begging. Consider it an offer. You're offering potential patrons an opportunity to get involved with something bigger than themselves. And with fiscal sponsorship, you're offering them a tax deductibility as well. So as soon as you're approved for fiscal sponsorship, we recommend that you send out an appeal asking for people to make a contribution and let them know that their donation will now be tax deductible. Some different ideas can be an email blast, a snail mail campaign, which can work very well these days since many people don't always receive snail mail, a newsletter, and put it on your website or host a fundraising event, run a crowdfunding campaign. You should consider all of them at this point as part of your larger fundraising strategy. So we here at Fractured Atlas have an individual appeal letter template, among other fundraising templates available for you to take a look at on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. Now, crafting a good letter is more than just plugging, your information into a formula and pressing send. So we strongly encourage you to use this template as a way to start your brainstorming about how your letter is going to be framed before you intend to send it out. But before you send out any appeals to potential donors, please send us a copy first for our review and approval. You can email your fundraising materials to support@fracturedatlas.org. A good rule of thumb is that anytime you mention Fractured Atlas or promise patrons tax deductibility, you should run it by us before sending it out. So we require this for a few reasons. First off, it's in your best interest to have another experienced pair of eyes take a look at what you're about to send out. At this point, I've reviewed probably hundreds of donor solicitations at least, and we have a pretty good idea of what a successful, well-presented appeal letter looks like. We can offer you some tips and tools to potentially maximize the effectiveness of your fundraising materials. So we'll definitely provide feedback where appropriate, but we're also looking to see that you're correctly representing the fiscal sponsorship relationship. So to that end, we've crafted some standard text that we require you to include with your donor solicitation materials. Now, this can be found in our knowledge base, and it's just a quick 2-sentence paragraph that succinctly summarizes the fiscal sponsorship arrangement. You're welcome to include it as fine print at the bottom of your materials, but it must be included somewhere. You can also access this through your My Fiscal Sponsorship page as well. If you go into the program guidelines, you'll see there the standard text for several different types of asks. So one of the other things we're also looking for is to see what you're offering your donors in exchange for their contribution. For example, advertising space. Unfortunately, you're not permitted to sell ad space through your fiscal sponsorship or give it away as an incentive in exchange for a donation. You are, however, allowed to offer corporate sponsorship in exchange. So what's the difference? Well, it has to do with who maintains control over the content and placement of the content. If your contributor has control over what will be listed in your materials and or if you are in some way endorsing their products or services, this is considered advertising. If you excuse me, maintain control over the content and you're not endorsing their products or services, this is considered corporate sponsorship. So typically, corporate sponsorship comes in the way of logo or name placement on your website or other materials. Frequently, this will be posted as a thank you or in recognition of the sponsor. And if you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to our staff and we'll be happy to assist. It can get kind of hairy in some situations, but anytime that you're offering, like, for instance, if they wanted, as you can see in this image, if you know Mustang was giving you or Pontiac was giving you funds and they said you have to use Pontiac cars in your film, that way you would not be able to accept a donation. So yeah, and that's one thing that you also can't offer to donors as well. So other things we might be looking for in your letter are you running a raffle? This might be a good idea, but you're prohibited from running it through your fiscal sponsorship with this. This means you cannot award donors raffle tickets in exchange for a tax-deductible donation. So raffles are considered a form of gambling, which is regulated at the state level. So it's not something that Fractured Atlas can really get involved with. So keep that in mind next time you're looking to do a raffle. So whenever you offer donors rewards of goods and services in exchange for their contribution, this makes their donation partially tax deductible above and beyond the fair market value of the rewards they are receiving. So for example, if you're offering a $10 shirt in exchange for a $100 donation, $90 of that donation is tax deductible. And that's the same. A lot of people like to do this with fundraiser tickets or gala tickets. So if, for instance, the gala ticket is normally $20 and the donor is giving $150, that means $130 of that donation is considered tax deductible for them. So we need donations to be at least partially tax deductible. You wouldn't be able to offer donors rewards of equal or greater value to the amount that they are actually contributing. So such an exchange no longer becomes contributed revenue and is a purchase or earned revenue. So the donation must be above the value of the item that they're receiving or the service they're receiving. One place where partial deductibility often comes into play is with a crowdfunding campaign. Frequently, fundraisers will offer rewards in exchange for donations through their campaigns. Now, we have a platform available for our fiscally sponsored projects, which allows for you to run a crowdfunding campaign and still offer your donors a tax receipt. This includes the ability for you to set up rewards with a fair market value attached so we can issue accurate receipts to your donors. In the year 2017, it's likely that you've heard of crowdfunding and supported campaigns yourself, so you pretty much know what it is. Now, we encourage our projects to run a campaign at least once as part of their overall fundraising strategy. Alternatively, if you don't want to run a crowdfunding campaign, or if you want to offer giving levels to donors on an ongoing basis, you can add some to your donation landing page on our website. So using your My Fiscal Sponsorship page, you can click that donations button and then giving levels. As you can see with the, again, green arrow right there, you can set up giving levels. So your donors, once those are set up, your donors will be presented with options on our website for different giving levels that they can contribute at. And if you want to offer donors rewards, their online debit or credit card donation can be partially tax deductible. So once they click one of those, they'll actually receive a tax receipt with the proper amount listed. So fiscal sponsorship can open the door to institutional funding as well, like from foundations or corporations. As with approvals of your individual solicitations and crowdfunding campaigns, we want to be involved when you apply for grants from these sources. So before I move ahead with that, before you start looking into uh, grants, grants, you should be aware that we have an eligibility requirement. We require that all projects have raised $1,000 before they are eligible to apply for grants through us. And now that doesn't mean you have to raise it through us. If you can show proof that you've raised $1,000 before for this same project before being sponsored with us, we can waive that requirement. Again, that would have to be contributed revenue, not earned income. So as long as you may have done, a Kickstarter campaign in the past or, received donations in the past, as long as we get proof, we can waive that. All right. So now that you've successfully solicited donations and had patrons donate to your fiscally sponsored project, what's next? How do you access these donated funds with Fractured Atlas? Well, first you need to send us the info for your checking account, which you can do by downloading the sign-up form for your electronic funds transfer, or EFT, from your My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the Fund Releases heading. So right there, you'll see in that green arrow, when you log in and you go to your My Fiscal Sponsorship page, you click that button that says Fund Releases, and you'll see Sign Up for Electronic Bank Transfer. Now, we strongly recommend that you have an account for your project's finances that is separate from your personal finances. That doesn't mean that you have to set up a business bank account. It can be a separate personal checking account if you like. So here's what it looks like. It's pretty simple to complete. You can send us the completed form with a voided check in one of three ways. You can scan and email it to support@fracturedatlas.org. You can fax it to us at our fax number, 212-277-8025, or snail mail it to us in the mail. Now, all of our contact info is available on our website. And again, this is recorded, so if you want to, hear this again, you can go ahead and do it as well. So an explanation of why we need a voided check and other acceptable forms of documentation to substantiate the accounting and routing numbers is what we really need that information for. A lot of people, these days say, I don't use checks, which is completely acceptable. A lot of people like to use wire transfers these days, or, things like that. But as long as you have a document from the bank showing that information, we can set up the EFT for you. That could either be a letter from your bank or a bank statement, anything that shows that routing and account number. So once we've received your checking account information, you'll be able to submit a fund release request through our website. So we hold on to all donations for 7 days after we process them to make sure that the check doesn't bounce or the credit card charge isn't disputed. And after 7 days, those donated funds are available to you to request for release. So unless we're waiting for a major gift letter from a check donation of $2,500 or more, you can request those funds for release after the 7 days. Now, we're happy to hold on to donated funds for as long as you need us to, provided that you remain a dues-paying member of Fractured Atlas with an active fiscally sponsored project, and then release them to you when you have any type of project-related expense. So as soon as you have a donation, doesn't mean you have to release it right away. We can hold on to it as long as you need. Now, we don't automatically transfer funds to our projects. As a fiscal sponsor, we need to demonstrate that we maintain a certain degree of discretion and control over how funds are raised through our program and how they're used. The fund release request is a control in place to make sure that fiscally sponsored products are using funds in alignment with our charitable mission. So when you submit a fund release request, you'll let us know how much you need and how much you'll be spending the money using some pretty broad expense category budget line items. So you can say that $1,000 is for public relations and $500 is for space rental. Now, there is an other category, but we almost never let anyone use the other explanation for these expenses. Almost 100% of the time, your expense should fit within one of the categories provided. And if you do select an other category, it may slow down the release of your funds, as we will get in touch with you to figure out where this might best fit. And one thing that you're not allowed to do is re-grant funds raised through our program to another individual or entity with no strings attached. So, for instance, you cannot offer a complete cash scholarship to someone. You cannot re-grant it to another public charity or anything like that. The best use of fiscal sponsorship is to raise money to spend on expenditures related to the art that you're creating or the service you're providing. And this can include paying people a salary or stipend for their time, but you're not able to award grants through fiscal sponsorship funds to other entities. So for particularly large fund release requests, we do ask that there be documentation for these fund releases. And documentation can be anything from receipts, contracts, invoices, agreements. We even accept screenshots of items that you might be looking to buy or anything like that. So don't worry, it's not that you have to have spent the money already. It's that you have to show the agreement between you and the payee that money will be exchanged and for what service. As long as we have that, we can release those funds. So anytime you're releasing funds of $5,000 or more, that amount requires documentation. So make sure that you have that available and you can upload it directly to the fund release request form so that everything goes smoothly in a timely fashion. So when you apply for fiscal sponsorship, if you recall, you were asked to provide a legal entity with a U.S. taxpayer ID. This is either an individual with their social security number or a business entity with its employer identification number or EIN. We can work with any type of legal entity that's individual, sole proprietor, a corporation, LLC, anything like that. And we ask for this because funds dispersed through our fiscal sponsorship program are reported as taxable income to that legal entity in the form of a grant. So each January, we issue a 1099 miscellaneous to individuals, sole proprietors, partnerships, and LLCs with us, showing the funds dispersed that previous calendar year as Box 3 Other or Grant Income to file with your tax documents. Now, corporations are not issued 1099s, but they will still need to report fractionalized income on their taxes. And you do have access to all of the information, donation information through your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. So if you wanted to download an Excel with all of the fund release information that was made throughout the year, you can choose specific dates and download that information for your taxes if you are a corporation and are not receiving a 1099. So with all that said, that doesn't mean you necessarily have to pay income tax on Fractured Atlas's fund releases to you. So because we only release funds to you when you request for use for specific project-related expenses, you should be able to offset the income on your taxes using the expenses that the funds paid for. So we strongly recommend that you work with an accountant or an accounting system to file and keep careful documentation of your expenditures. Because as long as you have that documentation, you can write that off on your taxes and speak with your accountant to be sure that you're able to do that. So an important thing to keep in mind is that your project is a separate business entity from Fractured Atlas. One of the great aspects of this is that you maintain complete ownership of the work that you create. But one important thing to know is that we don't grant you 501c3 status. Only the IRS has the ability to do that. Rather, we extend some of the benefits of our nonprofit status to projects that we sponsor. To that extent, we'll want to check in with you on a few things, primarily the use of our tax ID. Now, I'm sure if a friend of yours asked to use your Social Security, you would be curious as to why would they need that. In that same way, anytime you encounter a situation that requires our EIN or tax ID number or information, please let us know so that we can advise on its usage and approve that usage. So we're happy to provide sponsorship confirmation letters addressed to specific potential donors or sponsors to help grease the wheels, but we cannot provide a one-size-fits-all confirmation document with our EIN, as they want to be involved with each and every time someone is requesting our information. Just email us at support@fracturedatlas.org. You can let us know who the donor is, what specifically they're asking for, information they're asking for, and why they're asking for it, and then we can go ahead and assist you with getting any kind of donation or information out to your donors. Now, we are not able to help you set up a bank account using our EIN. Any account that you create needs to be set up in your own name with your own tax ID. So don't sign up for anything that requires our tax ID without running it by us first. A lot of the times they might be looking for something like that, in which case you wouldn't need that from us. It would be your information. Now, we can also provide a letter to help you obtain nonprofit rates for vendors that offer them. It's ultimately up to the vendor if they will extend a nonprofit rate to you, but most are really willing to do so. This is especially helpful with space rentals. If the venue offers a nonprofit rate, we can usually help you get a discount. Again, just shoot us an email and we'll send you that letter. Now, nonprofit rates do not apply to bulk postage for mailings. This is something that you would only have access to if you were your own 501c3 status. Unfortunately, we're not able to help you with sales tax exemption as well, because sales tax exemption is only given on the state level, and because Fractured Atlas is specifically incorporated in New York, we can only provide that in New York. And in order to be fair to all of the sponsored projects, we don't offer this to our projects. So the final major fiscal sponsorship policy to bring to your attention is our annual report. For any fiscally sponsored project that either processed donations or requested fund releases in a given calendar year, we're going to require that you submit to us an annual report updating us on your activities. Now, the report is due on April 1st of every year, and we will send out reminders starting at the beginning of the year. If you don't complete the report by April 1st, we will freeze your project, but it's relatively simple to unfreeze your fiscal sponsorship. You just need to submit the report and let us know. So you can access your annual report again on that magical My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the Info Reports button. So you click that Info Reports, that same place where you can view your fund balance, your available fund balance. You'll see File the Annual Report. And you usually have the current year there that you need to submit, and you can go ahead and access the report there. So the report is entirely online, so you don't need to prepare a different document, and it has two major components. The first is that we ask you to provide a brief narrative description of what you accomplished in that previous calendar year. This can be as detailed as you like, although we would prefer that you keep it relatively brief so that it doesn't take us too long to review. With the narrative, you provide a numerical impact for your work to show how many people were exposed to your work and how many artists participated. We also ask for updated financials. Because we only process contributed revenue for your fiscally sponsored project, we're only aware of income and expenditures relating to the funds that we've handled. So this is an opportunity to tell us about other funds handled separately from the program, where they come from and how they were spent. Also, if you've changed how funds released through our program were spent, let's say you used $1,000 for transportation, but then you actually ended up using it on utilities, here's your chance to let us know so that we can better adjust our own books. Now, the annual report is another way that we can demonstrate the discretion and control over how funds raised through our program are used. But this is also a way for us to collect data about the artists and arts organizations that we serve so that we can better understand our own impact in the nonprofit arts sector in the US. Now, the more accurately you can provide your data, the more complete the picture is of the kind of business our sponsored projects are able to do in their own communities. So I'm going to open up for questions momentarily, and I hope you've gotten a sense of how easy our fiscal sponsorship program is to use and how much power you actually have through our online tools available so that you can manage your fundraising. Now, I encourage you once again to thoroughly explore your My Fiscal sponsorship page. I'm sure I said it a million times throughout the presentation, but it really is the best resource for you to get everything done in a quick and timely fashion without having to contact us for everything. It is wonderful to use. And I do ask that you look over our program manual. It shows a comprehensive overview of all of our policies and procedures. So we really want to make sure that you are adhering to those policies, and so that you aren't losing anything in that. So before we open up to questions, I want to quickly introduce some of Fractured Atlas's other programs, and then I'll dive into the first questions that I have coming up. So one of the other programs we offer is Artfully, which is an online service that helps you manage ticket sales, donations, and your patrons. So it's a simple, elegant way to keep track of your events, your people, and how they're interacting with your work. It's a wonderful platform that I do suggest taking a look at. It links seamlessly to your fiscally sponsored project, so anytime you receive a donation, your Artfully will sync, and then you actually have a profile for that donor, so you can reach out to them about events, and it syncs with MailChimp as well, so you can do your e-blasts through that. One of the ways that it works, it's like a storefront. So you'll see up there all the ways that you can use your art through Artfully. Again, tracking your patrons, reaching out to donors, selling tickets, and then they'll also receive automatic email receipts. You can receive donations through Artfully for your fiscally sponsored project, or if you are your own 501c3, you can do that as well. Yeah, and as I mentioned, again, it is links perfectly to our fiscally sponsored projects. So once you become fiscally sponsored, I highly suggest linking it up to an Artfully account so that you can keep great track of your donors. So our next program is Space Finder. Space Finder is an online marketplace that matches renters with venues that meet their unique needs. For artists, the process of finding workspace can be very frustrating and inefficient. Meanwhile, venues have limited resources to spend finding new renters. Earned revenue is critical for creating venues, yet many rental spaces are tragically underutilized. Through Space Finder program, Fractured Atlas is increasing the visibility of rental options, helping artists find the space they need, and helping venues promote and rent their spaces. There's over 5,000 spaces listed and 550,000 searches for space every year. And there's also $800,000 plus annual rent referrals to participate in creating venues. So if you have a space or you're looking for a space, Space Finder is a really great tool to use. And it's available to many locations. So take a look on our site. Locations like New York, of course, Baltimore, the Bay Area, Los Angeles, Massachusetts, and also several places in Canada. So take a look at that. So thanks to the combined purchasing power of Fractured Atlas community and our members, we have access to high quality coverage for lower rates than would otherwise be possible for insurance. Insurance, more importantly, with one foot in the arts and another in the world of insurance, we've worked with some of the world's leading insurance companies to design a number of proprietary insurance programs that are specially tailored to meet your specific needs. We've even made the process as quick and painless as possible. So I do see I have a few questions here, and I'll go ahead and start here. We have, what is the policy on PR material in terms of approval, both print and social media? So the policy is that we do ask that you email us at support@fracturedatlas.org. We ask for about like 3 to 5 business days before your intended use. This is because, as mentioned, we offer feedback and provide approval of these items. Again, it's not necessarily going to take 3 to 5 business days, but we allow that. We say keep that in your timeline just so there's enough time for feedback and approval. With print, if you have something like a PDF of it or anything like that, you can send that over, or you can just copy and paste the text. And as long as we can read that text, we'll be able to approve it. And that's the same for social media. So if you're doing a Facebook post, or Twitter, or anything like that, send us the text in the body of the email, or you can make it a Word document, whichever you like, and we can provide approval for that by email. All right, next one, are donated hotel rooms for housing artists tax deductible? Unfortunately, no, because that isn't something that's given over to you entirely. It wouldn't be considered a non-cash donation we could accept because they'd only be staying there for a certain amount of time. If someone's donating a hotel stay, that's unfortunately something we couldn't give a tax receipt for. If someone's giving you a discounted rate because you are affiliated with this as a sponsored project, you could be eligible for that discounted hotel rate, and that's something that we could help you with. All right. Can you customize the online donation? Create a whole page on your web and use this button. If so, does the page have to be approved? Yes, all materials, including web pages, must be approved by a staff member before they go live. So if you want to send us a text to that or anything like that, yes, we would need to approve that before it goes live. That being said, your website, we do have the option for you to put a Donate Now button on your site. And that's actually accessible through your My Fiscal sponsorship page. You go in and you can see through our logos and things like that, you'll see the option for a Donate Now button that you can put on your site. And again, make sure that gets all approved by us beforehand, and you can use that. Is Artfully free? So Artfully does have fees associated with it, but not for you. Artfully has fees associated for anyone who's buying tickets through the portal. There's a fee for credit card processing, and as well as a ticketing fee for the people who are buying the said ticket. But Artfully itself is a service that's provided to our free community level members. So you can sign up for Fractured Atlas for free and set up an Artfully account. But there is fees associated with ticket sales and transactions. Considering a crowdfunding campaign, how does Fractured integrate with crowdfunding sites? Specifically, if someone donates through Seed and Spark, for example, how do you funds get to you? So right now, Fractured Atlas only has its own in-house crowdfunding platform, which is called Fundraising by Fractured Atlas. You can actually view some of the crowdfunding campaigns we have up right now. It's fundraising.fracturedatlas.org. And you can go ahead and take a look at that and see some of the campaigns that we have live now. Seed and Spark is a special situation. So if you have any specific questions about Seed and Spark, I suggest emailing us and we can look on a case-by-case basis. But it really depends for Seed and Spark. But at this time, we don't have any integration with other crowdfunding platforms like Indiegogo or Kickstarter or anything like that. The way that Seed and Spark operates is different at times, but we do need to review it on a case-by-case basis. So I do suggest emailing us before that. Okay, Squarespace allows donations to be made through our website. Is it possible to allow donations made through our website to be tax deductible? Can Artfully be integrated into a WordPress or Magento site? Yes and no. So again, we do have that option for you to put a Donate Now button on any site that you allow. Whatever Squarespace specifically has, we probably wouldn't be able to use their platform integratedly. But if you have a Squarespace site, you can, put the Donate Now button that we have that would link you to your donor landing page. This is because any donations that are made to the charitable organization, in order for us to give a tax receipt, we have to be the ones processing it. So depending on how Squarespace does it, it most likely is going through a different processor and wouldn't be tax deductible in that regard. So it would have to be processed by Fractured Atlas for us to issue that tax receipt. Artfully does work very well with all types of crowdfunding, all types of websites that you may have, and you can go ahead and look in the Artfully page at the widgets that are available. But again, the widget is very specific to the Artfully ticketing service, so it's not so much perfect integration for donations. But yeah, take a look. Artfully can be managed with many different sites with their widgets. Are you expected to have your bank account set up before applying to Fractured Atlas? No. So when you apply to Fractured Atlas, the application does ask for banking information, but you can send it in at a later date. So if you want to just apply and then you don't have a bank account ready, that's fine. Once it's all there, you'll have your website. You can even accept donations. But as soon as you want to release those funds, that's when you'll have to have that bank account ready and set up for us to link and send to you. So yeah, you can accept donations and anything through your excuse me, through your donor landing page. But if you want to release those funds, that's when you have to have that bank account ready. All right, does anyone have any more questions? Can you import an existing mailing list into Artfully? So Artfully is actually linked with MailChimp. So if you have a mailing list and you can link that with MailChimp, once you connect that MailChimp integration, they'll have access to all of your mailing lists on MailChimp. So yes, in a sense, yes, it can link to an existing mailing list as long as you have everything all set up on your MailChimp. And I believe it does update every time you're updating your MailChimp as well. When is the next webinar? That is a great question. I believe it should be next month per se, but we do have accurate information on our website. If you click onto the about programs and you click on fiscal sponsorship, on the right hand side it shows you all the webinars that we have coming up next. Can you change your bank account information if we have someone's personal bank account on file but now are planning to switch to collective? Yes, you can change your bank account information at any time. So if you have a bank account on file and then you now, for instance, opened a business bank account, all you would have to do is send us a new EFT form along with the voided check or bank document information, and we can go ahead and update that bank account information on file. But make sure that you do that before transferring any funds. We do have times that if your bank account information is not up to date and funds are transferred and returned to us, there is a fee for that bank return from us, and it is a very long process. So make sure that you have all your updated information before you make any new requests if you're changing your bank account. Is it possible to start as an individual and then become an organization leader? Yes, you can definitely do that. It does not require reapplying. What happens is if you, let's say you're individual and then you became incorporated and you're now an LLC, we just do an amendment to the grant agreement with us, which means we'll send you a form letting us know you let us know who the new entity is and the new name of the entity, and then both parties will sign it. Fractured Atlas will sign it and you will sign it, and then we can go ahead and update any legal entity on file. The important thing to note about that is that we ask for this to be done before December 15th of every year, because that's when we start preparing our 1099s, and we want to make sure that we have the most accurate legal entity on file that would be responsible for all funds released in that calendar year. So we make sure that all legal entities are updated by December 15th before we send out those 1099s. All right. If there are no other questions, I want to thank you all for attending the webinar today. If you do have any specific questions, maybe something you weren't able to ask because it's really specific to your work or your project, or something you didn't get to ask tonight, feel free to send us an email at support@fracturedatlas.org, and we can answer any questions you might have from this webinar. And again, I know we did have that one question about the next webinar, but these are the webinars that we do offer on a monthly or so basis. Feel free to take a look again on our website and check the upcoming info sessions for the next webinar. Again, this webinar has been recorded and will be available to you sometime next week. And if you want to take a look at some of our pre-recorded webinars, you can see that link right there, or go to our website and go to our knowledge base and fiscal sponsorship to our webinars to view any other ones that are up on our site. Again, yes, thank you so much for listening. I hope it helped, and we look forward to you attending our next webinar.